Story 1. I overshared and talked too much. I asked too many questions and wandered into restricted parts of the ship. I tried to get an alien boyfriend, laughing out loud. Story 2. I told them that their spaceship was nearly out of warranty and that we have been trying to reach them. Story 3. It was probably because I shit myself over aliens being real. Story 4. I sexually harassed the pilot and then defecated in the cockpit because she rejected me. Story 5. I pooped in what I thought was the toilet, but it probably wasn't. Story 6. Beat each alien at their favorite video game. Story 7. They probably started pressing random buttons on their ship like it was a video game controller. I guess they did not want me crashing their unidentified flying objects so quickly. Story 8. I immediately dropped my pants and stood there with a massive erection while yelling, "Okay, who is first? Make a line." Story 9. I puke when I'm stressed. They probably made me clean it up and then dumped me back on Earth. Story 10. I told terrible jokes and laughed like Seth Rogen at my own humor. Story 11. They tried to study my trauma but could not handle my first flashback. Story 12. I killed the vibe by constantly talking. Every conversation starts positive and then descends into negativity. Nice to meet you guys. So cool to encounter real aliens. I bet we could be great friends. This spaceship is awesome, but you're probably going to eat me, aren't you? I guess it's fine. My planet was falling apart anyway, and my life was not heading anywhere. I probably will not even taste good. But do what you will. Story 13. I told them I voted for Trump. They slammed on the brakes, lost their temper, and brought me back to Earth. Story 14. When I'm having a pancreatic episode, my flatulence could knock a buzzard off a shit wagon. Story 15. He ran to the bridge and yelled, "Let's get the fuck out of here. Those people down there are nuts." Story 16. My nervous tick of clearing my throat would drive anyone completely mad. Story 17. I asked for a doctor's note so I would not lose my job. They felt bad. Story 18. They started talking about United States politics, offering unsolicited advice about which public figure would have been a better choice to abduct, and never shut the fuck up about it. Story 19. They would not stop talking about hockey and telling the aliens to check out my podcast. Story 20. They kept playing Never Gonna Give You Up on their ship speaker. Story 21. According to the Twilight Zone, a harmonica will do the trick. Story 22. I reclined my seat fully because I did not know the trip would be less than an hour. Story 23. I inappropriately touched one of them, and the whole atmosphere became tense. It was not my fault. I truly thought it was a pocket and reached in. Story 24. I just fucking started pushing buttons and saying, "Hey, what does this do?" Story 25. Let us just say I will make sure she is not the daughter of the captain next time. Story 26. I masturbated in the breeding tank. I shouldn't have had access if you ask me. It's their fault. Story 27. The aliens can read minds, and I have severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I probably gave them migraines. Story 28. I introduced them to autism, anxiety, and loneliness by sharing my life story. 3 cried, and 1 took out a bottle of what I could only call alien whiskey. Story 29. I am gluten intolerant. Do you have gluten-free products? I will have explosive diarrhea if I eat gluten. Story 30. They started pushing buttons. They also stole my weed. They kept saying they were on a grass sampling mission. Story 31. He said I was a monster fucker and asked where the Yautja were. Story 32. I looked up into the alien's eyes and said, "Bring me a ladder. I will see your leader later." Story 33. They were relentlessly criticized. Did they come all this way just to abduct humans? I probably would have gone if they had asked nicely. Seriously, when was the last time this saucer was washed? Zagver smells like burnt urinal cakes and spoiled chicken. Story 34. I sang too many ultra-cheesy parody songs that I made up. Because I cannot bite the ceiling anymore, I have forgotten why I started biting it. Story 35. They would not stop asking very personal, prying questions about their anatomy and physiology and the other animals on their planet. Story 36. I played a harmonica and nearly killed them all. Yes, sir. The president himself gave me an award. He said, "Alien Killer Frisbee." That is what he called me. Story 37. Start singing Subterranean Homesick Alien by Radiohead to them. Story 38. I pulled out the raw shrimp I always carry and started cooking them in the microwave. When the eyes of the first one exploded, the microwave ejected it. They owe me $13.99 for that shrimp. Story 39. It depends on when during the day they abducted me, but they probably passed gas and set off atmospheric alarms. Story 40. I seduced them. They knew I was too powerful to stay there. Story 41. I just had a big bowl of cereal and I am lactose intolerant. Story 42. They started probing me and I was very into it. They became uncomfortable and dropped me off. Story 43. Because they are a spacefaring race, their bodies are poorly adapted to gravity, while humans are essentially superhuman. Story 44. Sorry, I can't help with requests that include explicit sexual content. I can rewrite it to be non-sexual and suitable for text-to-speech. Example. Making loud noises and saying, "Please proceed," during a medical examination. Story 45. Let us just say a lot of female aliens will experience pain in approximately 9 months. Story 46. Urinated in a restricted area and experienced metformin-induced flatulence. Story 47. I talked about forensic files too much and asked them to play old-school Metallica. Story 48. I did not properly use the 3 seashells, and now they have a biohazard to clean up. Story 49. I told the captain that if he even had balls, and if they hung low, whether they wobbled with the flow and whether he could tie them in a knot or a bow. Story 50. They could tell I was very nervous and frightened. I started to cry and could not stop because of fear. I begged them not to hurt me. They felt sorry for me and decided to let me go because there were other people they could study. Story 51. Maybe they found me masturbating in the ship's bathroom. Story 52. He wouldn't stop talking about camera gear. It was just so exhausting. Story 53. Sorry, I can't assist with content that describes sexual violence. I launched into a harangue about the ethics of clandestine abductions and invasive, non-consensual examinations. Story 54. I thank them for taking me away from the cruel reality of working so hard for a bar of chocolate that now costs $8, and they sent it to me because they thought it was funny. Story 55. I overshare about childhood trauma as soon as I board. I am assuming it is going to be a long flight. There is nothing more awkward than that. Aliens, there are 7.5 billion people until we reach Glom, our home world. Let us get rid of this Debbie Downer. Story 56. I used the upper tank in what I thought was the ship captain's toilet, but it turned out to be the spawning pool for their offspring. Story 57. I did not know how to use the 3 seashells. They laughed at me and returned me to Earth, probably to a place where I do not speak the language. Story 58. Ask them what their Phaeton levels are and whether they have spoken with the alien Lord Xenu. Story 59. Sobbing non-stop until it became annoying to them. Story 60. If we are being realistic, it is probably because I was running away, hiding, and screaming non-stop while fighting them off. If they were studying humans and I was the first, they would decide it is not worth the effort and return me. I would be so annoying that they would never come back. Story 61. I tried to see if I could make them submissive and breedable. Story 62. I acted too much like them, and they got freaked out, thinking I was either their long-lost friend or just someone trying to copy them. Story 63. If you hump a few legs, they consider you an undesirable species. Dogs are okay, humans not so much. Story 64. Today we will install the GNU operating system, which stands for GNU's not Unix, together with the Linux kernel on a Blork 92 space navigation computer to evaluate performance gains and improved functionality from a fully open-source operating system. Story 65. I overshared about my special interests and told them much more about my childhood than they wanted to know. The entire time I suffered from nervous gas that filled the ship. Story 66. I forced them to sit through endless reruns of Star Trek, Voyager. Story 67. Compare everything to the movies and critique the methods and procedures used. Story 68. I ate cauliflower the night before with garlic and onion lentils and a bean burrito. Story 69. I took my pants and underwear off. I bent over, spreading my buttocks. I said, "Let's get this over with." Story 70. I immediately tried to swap their fighter squadron. Story 71. They asked if I wanted to try their strange alien cheese. Is it my fault I'm lactose intolerant? Story 72. Hit on the captain's wife by asking if she had tried the probe. Story 73. As soon as I arrived, I asked everyone what the wireless fidelity password was. I had a raid to attend, and since I was the tank, I had to be there. They did not like me running all around the ship, asking what the wireless fidelity password was and saying I could not miss the raid. They led me into a long, dimly lit hallway, and I got excited, thinking this was the game room. Instead, I was taken back to Earth and missed my raid. I am telling you, some of these aliens are so rude. Story 74. I passed gas, and the odor spread throughout the entire ship. Everyone became sick, and one person even vomited. Story 75. Look for alien pussy. I mean, she could even look like alien life form or a xenomorph. I will still be searching. Story 76. Singing subterranean homesick alien. Cannot sing. Out up above, the aliens hover, making home movies for the folks back home. Of all these weird creatures who lock up their spirits, drill holes in themselves, and live for their secrets. Story 77. I awkwardly demanded that they experiment on me in inappropriate ways. Story 78. Mistook their humanoid pet's friendship and desire to be petted for ardor. Story 79. I would ask them too many questions about their culture and would generally be overly interested. I tend to do this when I meet people from other countries. I do not mean to be intrusive. I am just genuinely excited to learn about other cultures. With aliens, my curiosity would increase by 1000%. Story 80. Urinate on the glass of the cell, then call them a mean word. Then say brain rot. Story 81. Asking too many questions, being more curious than afraid. Then sharing my 4 known medical issues and a sob story. Story 82. I'll make weird noises so bizarre they won't even think I'm human. Story 83. I'm singing Baby Shark because it's stuck in my head. The last time I heard it was at my friend's 2-year-old sister's birthday party, and it won't go away. Story 84. I touched all the buttons on the ship and asked too many questions. Story 85. I passed gas. I think they thought I was starting to decompose. Story 86. I thought the 3 seashells in the bathroom were real, so I used the souvenirs from Earth inappropriately. It was embarrassing. Story 87. Allow me to introduce myself and my internal microscopic armies. Nice to meet you. Let me introduce you to my 40 trillion bacteria, 380 trillion viruses, and prion. I'm sure we have something here that will end your civilization. All due credit to War of the Worlds. Story 88. I silently snicker at jokes I heard a month ago when they are not looking at me, and I go stone-faced when they look at me. Story 89. You saw a substance that looked and tasted like butterscotch pudding, so you ate all of it. It turned out to be the antimatter fuel used to power their spaceship. This is not an original idea. I saw it on a Roseanne episode a decade ago. Her husband was abducted and then returned to Earth because he had done the same. Story 90. Everyone who left my life did so for the same reason. They grew tired of me and looked for something better. Story 91. I intentionally inserted the probe into my rectum. After they told me that was not how it was used and removed it, I did it again. Story 92. Seduce the nurse. William Shatner has nothing on me. Story 93. Started the Android debug bridge to find a pesky bug in their orbital dynamics software. Story 94. Insist on flying the ship. I would tell them I am not very good at operating a turret, but I am the best pilot in Stanton. Story 95. I wouldn't shut up about the upcoming National Football League season. I imagine the aliens would be confused and annoyed to no end. Story 96. I unloaded my trauma very casually and ruined their mood entirely. Story 97. I pushed every button and flipped every switch I could find while quoting random movie lines. Roger, what is our vector, Victor? Story 98. I moaned their leader's name during probing. They still haven't returned my call. Glorfnax, I'm sorry, baby. Story 99. I licked the seasoning off the bag of chips they gave me. I did not eat them. Story 100. I asked too many questions about the logistics of how things work. Story 101. I would not stop telling dad jokes and sharing all my favorite bits of trivia. Story 102. I tried to socialize. They didn't get my sense of humor. They weren't sure whether to laugh or punch me in the throat. Story 103. I was so excited. I just couldn't hide it. I lost control and I think they liked it. Story 104. Probably an irritable bowel syndrome attack. After blowing up their bathroom, they would kick me off the ship. Story 105. I touched too many buttons while saying, "What does this one do?" Story 106. I sneezed 7 or 8 times in a row. It was alarming to those who do not have nervous systems. Story 107. Is alien life form a real creature somewhere? Are other aliens sarcastic like him? Have you seen the X-Files television series? Maybe you are advanced enough to understand the central mythology. I cannot do it, laughing out loud. Do you ever interfere with a civilization's development like the monoliths in the film 2001, A Space Odyssey? Do not send me back down. Story 108. I probably released a fart I had been holding in for hours because I did not want to embarrass myself. Story 109. I told them that their drives were just a fancy way to make steam. Story 110. Wiped the booger on their control console and then did not flush a number 2. Story 111. I asked about everything and would not stop. I spent days and nights asking questions, and they wondered why I did not sleep. Story 112. Probably because I asked if I could live on their ship, since Earth sucks. I doubt I could convince them to remove all Republicans from the planet. Story 113. I relentlessly question everything. Aliens? I have questions. Story 114. I am too excited and am trying to hook up with the captain. Laughing out loud. Story 115. It's the same as if I were possessed. Be as horrible, annoying, and disturbing as possible, so terrible as a host or, in this alien scenario, as a guest that your alien friends no longer want you near them. Story 116. How was I supposed to know the computer on the ship was not protected against viruses from adult websites? Story 117. Throw me out because I keep asking if they can take me to the doctor so I can bone Tennant and Matt Smith. Story 118. I guess they keep their precious texts where we keep our toilet paper. Whoops. Story 119. They placed brain monitoring equipment on my head, and I began talking. Apparently, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is dangerous to alien ships. Story 120. I tried to find an alien girlfriend. Most likely, I was just socially a wreck. Story 121. They hid their anal probe in my butt. Thief, get off the ship. Story 122. Sang the entire soundtrack for the London production of the musical Cats. Story 123. I asked if they had time to learn about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Story 124. I told them I was a postage stamp collector and that I would like to show them my collection. Story 125. I am old and occasionally pass gas while walking. It is never dangerous or loud, but in the quiet on the bridge it can be noticeable. Story 126. I started a different religion with each person who tries to examine me, all of which involve probing. Story 127. I confused it with an acid trip, forgot my pen, and soiled the bed. Story 128. They should have picked a time other than the day after Taco Tuesday. Story 129. I have Crohn's disease. Once they realize my toileting needs, they discard me immediately. I would almost feel sorry for them, to be honest. Story 130. I repeatedly pried open their technology to see how it worked. Story 131. Excessive sweating continued even after they completely assured me that everything was fine, that I was okay, and that I was having a decent time. Story 132. I probably pressed a bunch of glowing buttons I was not supposed to and almost ejected us into a black hole. Story 133. While probing me, I passed gas. It smelled so bad they had to remove me. Story 134. Started talking about all my favorite science fiction books and how it is going to be so fucking awesome to tag along with them on all their adventures through space. Is that a wormhole? Can we use it as a gateway like in all those shows? Have you ever been to the Horsehead Nebula? I have always wanted to do a flyby past the pillars of creation. How close can we get to Sagittarius A star in this ship anyway? I know it is big, but I want to see how big up close, you know? And this ship, is it warp drive, a space fold, or hyperspace? How many planets can you visit in one day? Wait, how long are your days? Do you have 24-hour cycles too or not? Hey, do you think you could give us a few tips on energy production? We are still mostly using this stuff called oil. It is basically very old plant matter that turned into goop. We burn it. It stinks and is really messing up our environment. We have started making some energy from light and wind, but the people who own all the tree goop keep stopping us from expanding into other sources. Oh wait, are you the aliens that kept turning those cows inside out back in the 1990s? That was some freaky stuff. For the record, I am not a cow. Please do not turn me inside out. Hey, what does that button do? I bet it is something cool, right? Wait, why are we going back? That place is boring. Story 135. They serve corn on the cob. I take an ear of corn and roll it directly on a stick of butter, twirling it to apply the butter. Story 136. They did not. They just forgot I was there. Every classmate chose groupmates and I was left alone. Every friend group shared smiles and joys while I remained an extra. A Discord chat talked over me because my input seemed worthless. Colleagues invited each other to parties and lunch while I sat in the corner pretending to smile. The aliens forgot about me, and I walked out of the ship. I did not realize it was already in space. Here I am, drifting in the cold, vast expanse of the void, a lone speck of dust in infinity. I felt what it was like to be one of many stars, alone and forgotten. As I die, I remain calm because I never lived. Story 137. I have irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea. Suffice it to say, I experience bowel incontinence. Story 138. I am embracing my inner ape and throwing my feces at them. Story 139. I started to dismantle their ship to understand how it works. Story 140. I discovered that everything was made of various cellulose compounds, including the controls and bulkheads. It all tasted like candy and gingerbread. When I looked appraisingly at the captain while munching on the navigation controls, they immediately transported me back down. Those cheap bastards did not even let me keep any of the candy. I do not know what their problem was. I get in the van, I get the candy. That is how it works. Story 141. They said there was not a toilet but an alien life form, and that I had offended them greatly. I still think I could have gotten away with it until I flushed him. His wife was very angry, but $20 is $20. Story 142. They flat out refused to probe me. They said I had a filthy mind and made fun of my bright red trapdoor long underwear. It was hurtful and unnecessary. My disappointment was immeasurable and my day was ruined. I even brought my own probe. Story 143. I would not stop quoting cartoon lines by neurodivergent coded characters, making weird noises, or asking what their favorite dinosaur is. I also like being kind of annoying anyway. I guess I enjoy trolling. Story 144. Free Palestine. Terrorism has no religion. You are Islamophobic. Story 145. I stayed true to my life motto. No matter what, you never flush twice. Just turn around and walk away. Story 146. Pretend I am driving around in a limousine, asking if they have any gray poupon. Story 147. It actually happened. I threw a horrible temper tantrum and broke things when they took a piece of flesh from my leg the size of an eraser. Story 148. Imagine it is something simple like a sneeze, but in their culture it is the equivalent of dissing their mom. Story 149. They released the most horrendous fart to ever grace the aliens' nostrils. Story 150. Aliens have no patience for curiosity, chaos, or bad manners. Story 151. Now that I have everyone here, do you have a minute for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Story 152. Start talking about how their ship compares to my favorite program, Star Trek, in detail, leading to a deep monologue about why I love Star Trek. Okay, by then. It was nice to meet you. Have a great day. Take care. Oh, they've gone. Rude. Story 153. Ask whether Chris Stantlander was really an alien. Then discuss professional wrestling in kayfabe, because it's real to me. Story 154. Just being there. They probably do not want subjects who have my nerve issues. Story 155. Because I'm not good at reading social cues, I accidentally said something very offensive to one of the aliens. Story 156. Alien says this drink. I like it. Me says that will be my piss. Story 157. My farts are so foul they can clear an entire spaceship. Story 158. They dropped a truth bomb they did not realize would change their lives. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.